Hi, I'm Quinn, and I'm autistic. Welcome to Autistamatic. In recent months, I've put my life back together after a long period of stop and start burnout, and I've talked about some of it on screen. I'll link the playlist for anyone who wants to catch up there and down below. I've learned so much in that time which I'm keen to share, so this will be the last video in this particular sequence for now. I've talked a lot about what's happened and the decisions facing me, so where am I going next? What am I hoping to achieve? What should you expect in the next video and the next? This last 2 years saw no let-up in me diving between emotional troughs of pain, grief and disappointment, and bright spikes of possibility to keep my hopes up. This is only a modest channel in a niche corner of YouTube, but every day I get comments or messages from new viewers reminding me why this is worth doing. But as much as I love making content this way, it's not exactly commercial hot property. So if I'm not going to pursue the mighty dollar in the conventional way, I need to look to other means. Lots of you have come forward with ideas which have helped me dig deep into my feelings and my past to focus on where my motivations, my skills, and, I guess, my dreams actually lie. What am I doing here? I ask myself. What am I bringing to the table? Where does my value lie? A lot of you suggested roles or lines of work I could turn my hand to, things my skill set might lend itself to. And whilst most of them do look viable on the surface, there are barriers in my way which I wouldn't expect anyone else to know about. For all my candour on screen, I've barely scratched the surface of what's going on in this old bonce, and there are some things that I might have the knowledge for, but lack other key skills or attributes. For example, whilst my work here does bring solace to some of you seeking clarity and fellowship, I've not got what it takes to be a counsellor or therapist. Nor have I the fortitude or emotional temperament to be a campaigner or an activist, no matter how deep my commitment to change goes or how many people may be rallied to action or informed by words I write. I don't think I'm clever, creative or original enough to think of myself as an entertainer or an artist, and even calling myself a writer feels like I'm on shaky ground. I've known I was autistic since I was a teenager, but my search for clarity in a contradictory world started long before then. In a couple of cases, I can pinpoint the moment in time that individual aspects of my world were turned upside down. But I honestly can't remember a time when there wasn't something about the world of peopling that twisted my melon. Back in 1980, several years before my autism diagnosis, I watched a documentary series on BBC Two about our senses and sensory processing, which taught me an invaluable lesson about human perception. Everybody's real world and everybody's truth is entirely subjective and unique to them alone. Even people who agree entirely and describe things in identical terms still experience and view the world differently to one another. By the time I was told that I was autistic, the seed of understanding that my relationship with the world around me wasn't quite the same as everyone else was already there in the soil waiting for a drop of water and a ray of sunshine, and I think that might have been my saving grace. I'd already realised there was a range of differences in human perception, and since I lay on the fringes of that range, I was already expecting a bumpy ride ahead. Being told my differences had been observed in others so they had a name wasn't quite the shock it might have been, especially since autism wasn't a name that carried as much cultural baggage back then. In fact, the seeds of this chapter in my life, running an autism-centred YouTube channel and all that comes with it, were planted in my 9-year-old mind by a bespectacled, balding, middle-aged man on the telly explaining in astonishingly accurate detail how my mind worked. Now, I'm a bespectacled, balding, middle-aged man on the telly doing something very similar. Delving into the workings of my mind in the hope of lighting a few sparks of interest and inspiration in others. I started this series on change asking what I should call myself, what job category I most closely fit into now. Whatever it is, I know it'll have the prefix autistic applied by everyone else no matter what, so if I'm to be an autistic something, I ought to decide what I want that something to be. I get the whole idea of the autistic advocate label, but it doesn't feel right for me personally. I know that work like mine technically advocates on behalf of autistic people in general, but in my mind, an advocate... When you make a verb into a noun, it suddenly does more than just describe a person. It defines them. The activity now synonymous with the individual. In my mind, an advocate, as a noun, has a much closer, more personal relationship with the people they're helping than I do here on YouTube, so I don't feel much affinity with that designation. I said earlier that I don't possess the skills, practically or emotionally, to be an activist or a long-term campaigner, but I recognise the valuable supporting role channels like mine play in making change happen and the responsibility that comes with it. I don't do enough to warrant being described as a campaigner, though. Label after label went in the bin because the description doesn't fit properly or I don't feel worthy of it. But I finally found something I think works for me, and I'm trying it on for size. When I look back at the work of all the authors, journalists and documentary makers who've helped me to understand the world the most clearly, I noticed a quality in them which I've been unconsciously emulating ever since I put down the first words of an Autistamatic script. They helped me to understand complex topics that should have been way over my head back then, because they spoke my language. Some autists, Temple Grandin is probably the best known example, are visual thinkers. Many would argue that to be what we currently think of as neurotypical, you must be a social thinker. I'm a verbal thinker. My internal thought processes evaluate the world according to the rules of cause and effect as I interpret them through language. In order to make sense of my world, I don't paint mental pictures, create a logic puzzle, tot up the statistical possibilities or wonder what someone else would do. My view of the world is based around the words I use to describe it and everything that happens in it, or, as we might usually say, stories. They weren't just presenters or experts lecturing us with facts. They're storytellers. And probably the best phrase I could use to describe what I do: I'm an autistic storyteller. What I've done here with Autistamatic is what so many of us do when we're faced with a difficult situation or we're told an emotionally charged story. I relate it to something in my own life. When I do it on screen, I'm just imagining a question about a very broad issue that autistic people deal with frequently, and then relating experiences and feelings of my own that deal with something similar in my life. Storytelling. Some of my videos are very little more than storytelling, and even those that are heavy on facts and reporting still do so within the framework of a story. The conference presentation I did last week was full of stories from both my life and those of people who've shared with me. We don't just tell each other stories as a way of relating to situations, we absorb them for future reference too. The intricate detail of the visual thinker, the balanced equation of the mathematician, and the elegantly constructed sentence, all sharing the same eloquence when exchanged between like minds. My own comprehension is tightly knit with my understanding of words, situation and context. So when things are explained in those terms, they sink in. Doing the same when I try to express myself comes naturally, and the bump in subscriber numbers recently suggests I'm not the only verbal thinker looking for answers. So, if that's what I do best, why not lean into it? I'm a long way from exhausting my supply of personal stories, but I also know there's millions of autistic stories waiting to be told and learned from, and I want to help them be told. Safely, mind you, that's always of paramount importance. When I talk about myself, I can pick and choose what to say or not say because I'm the one making the choice to expose myself to scrutiny. But even then, I choose to fictionalise any details that might lead to embarrassment or unwanted exposure for anyone else. In fact, there's many stories I'll never tell just because it isn't possible to protect the innocent. I've a number of projects waiting to happen, but they all have one unifying theme: giving voice to those who have none. In autistic terms, that will draw everyone's mind to the non-speaking autists in my audience. And, well, yes, but no. Yes, I do mean non-speaking people. But also all those people who are fed up of being shouted over on social media. Those who don't feel safe disclosing publicly. Those who are still wondering if they might be autistic. Or just those who have a quandary or observation in mind but nowhere to air it. I want to hear from you and learn from you. Autistamatic isn't just a place for autistic people. It's for everyone on this journey with us and anyone else who's curious about what being autistic is really like. We're all on a path towards better understanding, so why not travel together and learn from each other on the way? My perspective on autism is influenced by the many books and academic papers I've read over 4 decades of intense personal interest. But that's not where most of my viewpoint originated. Some of the scientific conclusions made in that time have been groundbreaking and led to measurable progress, while some aren't fit to wipe your behind with. But none have helped me understand my peculiarities more than the simple act of conversation. Exchanging of views and telling of, you guessed it, stories. So, in the coming weeks and months, I'll be delving into more of your stories on the channel and opening routes to representation of more autistic lives, situations, and points of view. There's a number of ways I'd like to make that happen, and I'll tell you more once I've got all my cards in place. Every one of you has questions you've been failing to find answers to for years. So, let's put our heads together and work them out as a community. I've also put a lot of thought about how I might do justice to important topics which aren't really suitable for this YouTube channel, either because they're deemed overly sensitive or controversial, or they're of more academic interest, dry and not very engaging to a general audience. So, I've started work on some longer pieces that I'll put out there free to patrons and charge a small fee to anyone else. The driest and crispiest of the professional interest stuff, I'm saving for something special just for those who make money out of understanding us and don't mind investing a little of those earnings in improving that understanding. I'll be using the tools available to me to try and promote Autistamatic, so you'll see shorts from me in your YouTube feed soon, and I'll be paying some proper attention to SEO and channel optimization when I've got a few more videos in hand and can spare the time. Social media is a sticking point right now because I'd like to have a presence again, but it's going to be some time before I can face it. So I'm hoping I can find someone I can trust to run a simple set of social media accounts, just to make announcements, summarise comments for me and the like. That's the biggest problem for any autist trying to start something new, I think. Finding people who not only have the skills, but that we can communicate with effectively and we can trust. I'm making a start, but we're still closer to the little acorn stage in that department than the mighty oaks one. There's a couple of book projects on the cards down the line too, something I get asked about frequently. I'm not pretending I don't have a lot to do already, but if things go the way I hope, I should have more time to start writing something for your bedside table soon. When I was made redundant last year, Mrs. A and I did our sums and decided that Autistamatic was both our best chance of making a living and the only way I was ever likely to feel I was doing something truly worthwhile with my life. It was a risk that very nearly backfired on us, because the you-know-what refused to stop hitting the fan for a little while longer. But we got through that rough patch, and here I am looking to the future again, for one reason alone. Autistic people are far more generous, kind, caring, more thoughtful and protective of those they care about than almost any non-autistic academic I've ever seen would give us credit for. I would thank you all by name, but the truth is you don't all want that. I'm used to a transactional world where few people do anything without a clear, short-term gain in sight. It doesn't have to be financial gain, it can be status, affection, services in kind. Some charities wouldn't survive if they didn't offer something in return for every donation they get, even if it's little more than being a proxy to assuage the donor's guilt. But that's not what I got from this community in my hour of need, and few wanted even recognition. OK, most of that help has come in the form of moral support and friendship where it wasn't expected, but there's been tangible, practical help too. Not with the expectation of a return or even a favour in kind, just the knowledge that they helped me through a rough patch so that I can continue to help others. I can do this because I've got you supporting me. All that's left for me to do is to put the work in so I can earn the respect and kindness of enough of you to build the channel and earn those Patreon donations to make sure the bills continue to be paid. I have faith in the future because you continue to show faith in me. I'm Quinn, and I'm autistic. Thank you for watching. If you've already liked and subscribed and would like to support the channel more, then please follow the Patreon links in the description to pledge what you feel is fair and affordable to help keep the lights on here and the content keep flowing.